I don't know why I came back. Or should that be, I don't know who brought me back. Tom Nook, maybe. Or Tortimer, if I can find him. This town holds secrets, more than I can count. Is it possible to escape Animal Crossing a second time? Animal Crossing Noir, an alternative Animal Crossing blog, written and produced by Christopher Jarvis. Chapter 1. Welcome Back. I opened my eyes. Moving lights flickered past the window. My ears caught up with my eyes and I heard the clickety-clack of train wheels on tracks. A painted metal sign raced past the window, announcing that we had just passed over a county line. It read, "Welcome to Animal Crossing." That was a name that made me sit up. I promised myself I'd never come back. I stared around. The train was a single carriage, one of those services that shunts back and forth between local stops. It was empty apart from the driver himself, sitting in his regulation monkey suit and staring out ahead, and a guy sprawled cat-like on a seat across the aisle. He was staring at me. I ignored him. Where did this train go, I wondered. Come to think of it, how did I get here? I racked my brains, desperately trying to remember boarding. My breathing became shallow and urgent, and I began to panic. I had no recollection of catching this train. "Think, man, think," I said to myself. "What's the last thing you remember?" I could picture myself at home listening to the radio. I was coming to the end of an audio drama, some space opera about a star pilot going on the run with a stray kid. It was pretty good. What then? I must have heard the flutter of mail falling through the letterbox, because I went to my door and sorted through the post. Sifting through bills, junk mail and statements, one item stood apart from the others. A postcard featuring a bright picture montage of beautiful views, wildlife and shops. Across the front was an invitation that made the hairs on my arm prick up. In bold red letters were the words, "Welcome back to Animal Crossing." I flinched in horror. The card would not have inspired the same reaction in others, but I was a past survivor of that place. An SKP, if you like. It had claimed a year of my life, and I had determined to be free of it. Oddly, I couldn't recall why I had left Animal Crossing before. I remembered feeling a compulsion to stay, but beyond that I couldn't put my finger on what had kept me there, or how or why I had left. My fingertips buzzed as I held the card. I became aware of the ticking of the grandfather clock in the next room. I looked at it and stared as the pendulum swung back and forth in its glass chest. The swing seemed to slow with each journey, the sound becoming deep and dreamlike. A pain throbbed in my arm, and there was a strange taste in my mouth. I closed my eyes to shake away the sensation. That was all I could remember before the train. The carriage rocked side to side on the rails as I grappled with my recollections. I opened my eyes. The cat guy was still staring at me.
"Do you have the time?"
he asked. He made some excuse about his watch and asked to sit by me. I shrugged. It was a free country, or so I thought at least. The stranger smiled and asked,
"Where are you going?"
My eyes strayed to the little screen above the door to the driver's cabin. It was an information terminal displaying the name of the next station. "Io Falls," I said quickly. "My stop is next." In truth, I'd never heard of the place, but I knew I wanted off this train, and soon. At the first available stop, I would see about returning home. The stranger chuckled to himself.
"Io Falls, huh? Have you been there before?"
"I don't recall," I replied. Despite my coolness, the stranger persisted.
"Oh,"
he said.
"So you're moving there, are you?"
I shrugged, with as much nonchalance as I could muster in my confused and panicked state. "I'll let fate decide."
"Fate, huh?"
the stranger said, watching me carefully.
"I wonder what awaits you."
I opened my mouth to speak, but the driver's voice came over the speaker, cutting me off.
"Io Falls,
he intoned.
Next stop, Io Falls."
I got up, desperate to leave. The carriage squealed to a halt and I rocked on my heels to maintain my balance. The automatic doors slid open. I turned to see if the stranger was following me out. To my surprise, the carriage was empty, save the driver in his rail company uniform. I stepped onto the platform. The stranger was nowhere to be seen. The train's doors closed behind me and the carriage rattled on, continuing its course. The only figure in the station was a guard, who could have been the split of the train driver. Same monkey suit, same stare. He seemed to have little interest in whether or not I held a ticket. "Hey," I called to him, "when's the next train back?" He shook his head, saying, "No more trains tonight." I sighed. "What? I'm stuck here." The ticket guard chuckled quietly and gestured toward the door. I stared at the opening, a feeling of dread inevitability rising in my gut. That was when I saw the crowd of villagers, standing in the pooled light of the station exit. They were waiting for me. Chapter 2. Stranger off a train. I stood under the warm glow of the lamp over the railway station door. I could see the welcoming committee waiting for me outside. They struck me as a non-threatening bunch, or at least as non-threatening as a crowd of people blockading a doorway can be, especially when I'd just stepped off a train I didn't remember boarding and had no memory of leaving home. I was already pretty rattled. There was an excited murmur. The group were smiling and sharing glances between them as they saw me. There was a lady with a bad 1980s poodle perm. She was clutching a clipboard tight to her chest. I got the impression she was trying to exude authority. With her was a tiny woman with sharp, pointed ears. Next to her was a short guy with freckles and a rodent-like expression, and another, taller woman with a long, exploring nose. The crowd drew a simultaneous breath.
Welcome, Mayor!
They cheered, the chorus led by Poodle Perm. I stared. The three companions gave me a cheerful wave and clapped. I couldn't even think about how to respond. For a moment, I felt a wave of relief. She'd called me Mayor. Clearly they were waiting for somebody else, and I was off the hook. The ticket guard had been clear that there were no more trains tonight, however. "I'm afraid you're mistaken," I told them. "You must be waiting for someone else." For just a moment, Poodle Perm lady seemed to lose her resolve. But then she smiled and cocked a gun finger at me, saying, "Oh, you're such a kidder." She gave a humourless little laugh that was half chuckle, half growl, and then continued with her spiel.
"Well, a sense of humour is an important trait in an elected official,"
she said, her voice bordering on hysteria.
"All is well. There's no mistake.
She was reassuring herself as much as the crowd.
We want you to feel at home, Mayor."
The way she said it now was like there was a shared joke between us. That grated on me.
"So here's a map of Io Falls so that you can find your way around."
She handed me the map. I looked around at the crazy woman's three companions. They were watching me carefully. Were their faces betraying expectation, confusion, or amusement? I couldn't place it. "No, I said. You really don't understand. I don't know who you're waiting for, but it definitely isn't me. I'm not your mayor. I've tried telling you politely, but you don't seem to be taking it in. What part of no do you have trouble grasping?" There was a flicker in the eyes of little Miss Poodleperm. After a moment of interminable silence, she forced a thin, polite smile and said,
"Well, let's continue this discussion at the town hall, shall we?"
She indicated a big municipal building marked on the map.
"Why don't we go there together?"
We walked for some time beneath trees. There were no paths or any kind of navigation. I looked behind me, trying to memorise my route through the forest to get back to the railway. I hadn't seen any roads around the station either. I had a sudden memory of my previous life in Animal Crossing. I'd arrived in a taxi, hadn't I? It was raining that night. The cab driver had talked all the way there. I brought my mind back to now. We crossed a stone bridge over a lazily flowing river, and we came to a squat, stone structure in a clearing amid the trees. Poodleperm unlocked the front door and pushed it open, habitually clicking on the light switch as she went in. It was an old-fashioned office, wooden counter at the front, flip-up bar hatch at one end and a lone desk by the back wall, surrounded by filing cabinets and covered in trinkets.
"Welcome to the town hall, Mr. I didn't catch your name."
Poodleperm said to me. "I didn't drop it," I told her. She turned to face me and took in a deep breath. She said quickly,
I'm Isabel, your secretary, and I'm here to help in any way that I can. If I may be frank, I was surprised to find that it would be someone as young as you.
Was that disapproval in her voice?
I mean, our former mayor held the position for many, many years, and was quite set in his ways.
She trailed off. If you want to help, you can start by listening. I'm not your mayor. You've got the wrong guy.
Well, really?
Isabel huffed and trotted over to one of the filing cabinets. She opened it with a frustrated clatter and ruffled through the files. She pulled one out and returned, slapping it down on the counter in front of me.
If you aren't the mayor, then perhaps you'll explain this.
She flipped open the file and stubbed her finger into a grainy 6x4 print. I stared. There was no way I could deny that the photograph in the file was clearly and unmistakably a picture of me. Isabel gave a victorious smirk. Her previous bumbling persona had slipped away.
Welcome to Io Falls, Mr. King.
Chapter 3. Nook. I stared at the photograph in the file. It was solid evidence my coming here was not by accident.
Can you confirm your name, please?
Isabel said. She leaned over my file, pen in hand. What's the point? You have it there, don't you? Isabel smiled thinly.
We have all sorts in here, but if you insist. Your name is Harry M. King, yes?
Most people just call me HMK.
Address?
She barked, ignoring my response. I made to reply, but couldn't. I stood, mouth open. Where did I live? I couldn't recall even the most basic information from my life before the train journey. Isabel sighed.
In order to register you as a town resident, we need your address for the form.
She shot me a knowing glance, adding,
And there aren't any vacant houses here.
My spirit rose. I could see a flaw in her logic that gave me hope. I thought you were expecting a new mayor. But you don't even have a place for him to live. Her smile grew, lacking any human warmth. I'd walked straight into her trap. She said,
I think it's time you met Mr. Nook.
While the memory of my last sojourn in Animal Crossing was hazy, especially how I had escaped the first time, there was one name that stuck in my mind. Tom Nook. I remembered Nook as a small-time shopkeeper. Beyond his day job, he had a sideline in building loans for desperate residents. Between the loan sharking and his retail monopoly, he'd made a lot of money out of the town. It didn't surprise me to hear that he was still around. Isabel told me that Nook had a real estate shop on Main Street. If I wanted somewhere to live, Nook was the guy to speak to. But my memory told me I should get out of this town without making his acquaintance. It was late, and I needed a place to sleep. Isabel's directions took me back past the railway station. I looked inside for somewhere to lie down. There was a row of plastic seats in the station lobby, which looked uncomfortable. The station guard would likely have thrown me out anyway. I ruled out sleeping in the open under trees. All I had was the clothes on my back, and the night was turning to chill. With a grim realization, I saw that the only way I'd find a proper bed was through Tom Nook. I told myself it would only be for one night. In the morning, I'd figure out a way home. On Main Street, only one premises was still illuminated. The sign above the door read, Nook's Homes. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. I've been waiting for you. Tom Nook walked to the centre of the room. He was just like I remembered. Same swagger, same rodent features. He wore an expensive, bright yellow sports jacket. On behalf of the Io Falls Chamber of Commerce, I'm pleased to welcome you. He let the impressive title hang in the air for a moment. I believe you want to build a house, yes? You just take your pick, boy. I can build just about anywhere you want. I don't really need a house. I'm not even staying long enough to process the planning permission. Well now, don't you worry about permission, especially with you being the mayor and all. The town hall and I have a very amicable arrangement. But you need somewhere to stay, surely. I can give you a roof for the night, even if it's canvas. That would be fine, I said, feeling my tiredness growing. Well, why don't you show me where you'd like to live, he said, opening the door and gesturing outside. We walked back over the rails, and I searched the woods for a campsite, albeit groggily. All the way Nook enthused about houses and showed me pictures. I didn't really listen. A bed for the night was all I cared about. Now this is a nice spot, Nook whistled as I led us to a clearing near the river. I can see why you'd want to purchase this particular land. I shook my head. I'm not interested in a purchase. Really. I just need somewhere to sleep. And why should you be sleeping somewhere that isn't yours? He pointed an accusing finger at me. That ain't fair on nobody. But since I am a generous man, I can do you a loan that covers the land and a down payment for your house. I could feel the town's grip closing around me. How much? I asked. Well, the calculation is complicated. He scratched his chin. I'll tell you the total later. But what about the tent? I began, turning to indicate the clearing. To my astonishment, there sat a canvas tent, right in the spot I had indicated. I had neither seen nor heard anybody construct it while we'd been standing there. Nook studied my face with amusement. You'll find my people work very quickly, quietly, and discreetly. He began to walk away. Oh, and don't forget to register your address with the town hall, Mr. Mayor. I stared at the tent that had appeared as if from nowhere. How could it have been put there without my noticing? Despite a head full of questions and no small amount of fear, I needed a good night's sleep. I pulled open the canvas apparition, stepped inside, and lay down to sleep. Chapter 4. Trains and Trees. In my tent, lost and alone in this strange town, I had a dream. I felt sure I was in a garden behind my home, my real home. A woman knelt in the grass, cradling something in soft, dry soil. What are you doing? Without turning, she moved aside for me to see the object in the ground. Striking up toward the sky was a tiny sapling bursting out of the soil. One day, she said, this tree will be tall and strong. We need never be poor, hungry, or sad again, as long as we take care of this tree. I said, that's silly. Money doesn't grow on trees. She laughed, a dainty, delicate laugh that caught in the breeze and drifted away over the garden boundary. She said, but of course it does. I cried out as she turned toward me. Framed within wispy, golden curtains of hair was a perfect, featureless dome. The woman had no face. Ah! My shock woke me. The sides of the tent rippled in the morning breeze. With a feeling of dread, I remembered where I was. I half ran, half stumbled to the railway station. The monkey-suited railway guard sat inside. How much for a ticket home? I asked him, bounding up the steps.
Trains are free,
he replied with a feigned air of sagacity.
all day, every day.
Good job, I said, turning out my empty pockets as a joke. Money doesn't grow on trees, eh? He said nothing. I gave a nervous cough, asking, when is the next one? Can you let me onto the platform?
The next train should be arriving any minute now.
He extended a hand.
If I could just see your town pass card.
Town pass card? I said, becoming angry. It felt to me like another trick to keep me here. He pointed a laconic leathery finger in the direction of the station door.
Go see Isabel in the town hall. She'll have it.
I gasped in frustration, about to challenge this officious gatekeeper of my freedom. But at that moment, I felt a soft rumble underfoot. There was a train coming. The platform barrier wasn't high. I reckoned I could be over it and through the train doors in little time. It was risky, but better than a confrontation with Isabel. She was at the heart of the strangeness here. My pulse quickened as I saw the cyclopean headlight grow larger. I tensed, ready to leap for my escape. To my horror, the train whizzed by. It rushed through the station with barely a break in its terrific pace. For a moment, although later I couldn't swear I hadn't imagined it, I thought I saw a person on the train. Slumped in a seat, unconscious, a cat-like figure was watching them from across the aisle. Before I could see clearly, the train roared away into the distance.
It didn't stop!
I shouted, turning to the guard in frustration.
Why didn't it stop?
The guard shrugged.
I guess that wasn't your train.
Anger burned in my eyes as I trudged back to the town hall. Without knocking, I pushed open the door and marched inside. Isabel was sitting behind her desk, smiling jovially.
So,
She inquired, either ignoring or oblivious to my mood.
did you find the perfect spot to call home?
I grunted in reply.
I'm very happy to hear that. You're in temporary housing for now, right? I do hope your house is completed soon. Living in a tent can be very tiring.
Isabel had my file open on the town hall counter again.
Please, take this.
She said, producing a small card from the file.
This is your very own town pass card.
I stared. This seemed too easy. I had anticipated elaborate demands from Isabel in return for the precious card. Just like that.
It's all yours. With that, you can visit other towns.
I can leave, I exclaimed. Isabel looked at me as if I had said something odd.
Of course you can leave. Why, you aren't a prisoner.
I gripped the card tightly. This was my lifeline, my ticket out. As I made to leave, Isabel said,
One more item, Mr. King. Would you participate in a ceremony to commemorate your arrival? We'd like for you to plant a tree.
A tree? A feeling of sick dread came as my dream flooded back.
It should be a very memorable experience.
She studied my face. Had she expected a reaction? What, now? I asked, my heart beating faster and faster.
It would be best.
Her gaze shifted to where I was grasping the card.
In any case, you'll need a photo on that card before you can use the train. There's a booth in town. It's only 500 bells.
My head swam and I could feel my pulse in my ears. Bells? I asked, fighting the nausea.
Everything costs money, Mr. King. Don't they have money where you come from?
I see. I'm not sure I have any...
Oh, you'll have some bells in no time, I'm sure. Even if you don't, you can always shake a tree.
I shook my head, as much to fight the dizziness as in defiance. That's silly. Money doesn't grow on trees. Isabel regarded me with a confused look, then laughed.
But of course it does.
And with that, my world went black. Chapter 5. Getting Out. I awoke on a patch of hard ground. It was late. I recognised a few of the townspeople milling about from my train station welcoming committee. In the centre of the plaza was a raised soil bed, sporting a single tiny sapling. A woman with a long, inspective nose approached me.
That was quite a ceremony.
Ceremony?
Oh, you. When I saw you planting that tree in the event plaza, my heart got all thumpy-thumpy. I just knew you were the mayor for us, the way you put your heart and soul into that tree.
My soul?
Anyway, I can't stand here blathering on. I just know we're going to be great friends.
I shook my head. This place was insane. There was nothing for it but to get out. The town pass card. I patted down my pockets and realised with relief I still had the card. What was it they said? 500 bells for a photo and I could use the trains. How was I going to get money? You, where can I find money in this place?
Well, there's always money to be made at retail.
Retail? What's that? A shop?
Yep. You take all the little bitty things you find around town, fruit from trees, spare furniture, fish from the river, and they'll give you bells for it.
Where is this place?
It's beside the railway line, next to the crossing.
Great, thank you. I made to walk away, but she held on to my arm.
Except, it's closed now.
Of course it is.
It'll be open in the morning, bright and early.
I can't wait that long. I need money tonight.
Well, although I would never be seen doing such a thing, you could always shake a tree.
Shake a tree? What does that mean?
Our trees provide everything we need.
She began to walk away, swaying with her glass towards the drinks table.
Just shake a tree, you'll see.
I wandered in the forest for some time, until I came to my tent. I wanted to get inside and lie down, but I knew in the morning there would be some other distraction, some other reason I had to stay. That was no longer an option. Shake a tree, the woman had said. I grasped the trunk as firmly as I was able and pulled. The tree had a surprising amount of give. The top rocked back and forth and the leaves swayed. There was a tinkling sound as a small golden coin bounced out of the branches and landed at my feet. On one side, the numbers 100 glinted in the moonlight. I shook the tree again. Nothing. I tried another tree. A grey, broad-rimmed hat floated down from the branches. It was a perfect fit. I went on, curious but giddy with excitement. Some of the trees gave nothing. The fruit trees gave up their treasure easily, and I filled my pockets with glee, eager to be supplying myself with a small feast for my journey home. I found another 2 coins, making 300 bells. Nearly there. I came to a tall, dark fir tree. I reached in through the branches and shook. A small leathery sack dropped from the branches and broke apart on the floor. Panic rose in my gut as I recognised it. A bee's nest. I ran, away from the nest, through the trees and towards a nearby light. I could hear the swarm gathering behind me. The light grew nearer. The town hall. It was the town hall. My feet pounded below me as the door grew larger and larger. The bees were right behind me. I slammed into the hard wooden entrance. It was locked. "Isabel!" I yelled, pulling at the handle and banging with my fists. "Isabel! Let me in!" No response. The swarm descended on me. A myriad of fluttering wings and painful pinpricks. A glowing hotness on my skin as the venom found its marks. Then, in a moment, it was over. The bees flew away, as if summoned en masse. The door behind me creaked open. Isabel stood silhouetted.
Oh dear. What on earth has happened to your face?
I crawled back through the woods towards my tent. I had no mirror to see my face, but what I could touch felt puffy, swollen and tender. As I approached my temporary home, I saw something I hadn't noticed before. There was a mailbox hammered into the ground beside the door. A dog-eared envelope peeked out of the delivery slot. I tore it open. "Dear HMK," it began. Whoever sent it knew who I was and that I was here. "Congrats on your newfound marehood. To be honest..." I trailed off. The next words hit me like a non-stop train. It said, "To be honest, I was supposed to become the mayor." Chapter 6. Out of Town. When I awoke, the swelling on my face had gone. I took stock of the meagre treasures I had acquired. 300 bells, 3 oranges, wounded pride and a hat. I put the hat on and stepped outside. As I walked, I couldn't help but think of the letter. There had been another intended mayor. Why had they not come here? Who had brought me here in their place? Retail itself was a small wooden shack with a tin roof and a smoking metal chimney. Inside it was deceptively spacious. The place had a kind of bric-a-brac feel. Pre-loved furniture stood on brightly coloured reclaimed pallets and sported hand-written price tags. A tall woman with arsenic-white skin and big pink hair. In the corner, a guy in overalls and an Elvis quiff slept noisily.
Welcome to the recycle shop, retail. Oh my, would you happen to be the new mayor? What an honour!
I was told, I stuttered, feeling my confidence falter. What did I really know about this place, other than what Annabelle had told me?
Our shop buys items and furniture to resell here. So, Mayor, if you have something you no longer need, please bring it by for a fair price.
Carefully, I showed her 2 of the oranges I had stowed in my pockets. The other I saved for a meal.
Well, I'll start crunching the numbers right away. Well then, I could probably part with 200 bells for all of it, if that sounds okay with you.
I probably gasped. Right there in this absurd woman's hands were the bells to get me out of this town. Deal! She smiled and counted out more of the round golden coins. On one of the raised stands hung a thick woolen jacket with gold buttons. I shuddered, suddenly feeling the cold and realising I was still wearing the clothes I'd arrived in. How much for the jacket?
Well,
She hesitated for a moment, a far-away look in her eye.
that used to belong to Patrick. The asking price is 100 bells.
I'll take it, I said, passing her back a coin and pulling the warm jacket over my cold arms. I headed to the door. She called after me as I went.
Come back with more anytime you like.
I ran from the store, pelted across the railway line and into town. Main Street looked as though it had suffered hard times. Far from the bright colours of the town and the happy-go-lucky nature of the villagers, most of the stores here were shut up. Not just closed for the day, but vacant. Boarded windows, overgrown ivy. There was a basement plot with chains across the entry. Elsewhere, building materials and equipment lay scattered, as though someone had started something, but never managed to finish. At the end of town were a bench and a viewpoint that looked out over the sea. The railway line ran out of town and over a cantilevered steel bridge. It stretched out to the horizon, no land in sight. In the other direction, the rails disappeared into a tunnel cut straight through a sheer cliff wall. That was the way I'd come in. The photo booth was pushed up against the wall next to what looked like a dilapidated Greco-Roman temple. I pulled open the curtain and stepped inside. The booth itself was a pretty simple machine. Look, snap. As I stared into the lens, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Finished card in hand, I raced back to the station and flashed the ID at the monkey. He nodded pleasantly and handed it back.
Where do you want to go? A nearby town or a faraway town?
Far away. As far as the line will take me. The guard gave away no emotion.
Train should be along in just a few minutes.
I stared down the rails as I waited. Eventually, the train came rolling down the track towards me. My heart raced as the carriage came to a halt. I was through the doors and onto a seat, impatiently drumming my hands on my lap. The train pulled away from the station and raced into the tunnel. Sunlight flashed through the windows as we reappeared above ground. A cool breeze wafted through the air vent next to my head. How long had I been in the tunnel? Hours? Days? Minutes? The carriage lurched to a stop. I stepped out. The station was identical to the platform in Io Falls, down to the bank of lockers and the rows of plastic benches. Even the monkey-suited ticket guard was a doppelganger. What the hell is this?
Welcome to Echoville.
But this can't be. We must have gone in circles. I pushed past the guard and ran out of the door into the light. I wasn't home. Neither was I in Io Falls, but for all the little differences I could see, I knew I had walked into the same trap. The same nightmare. Episode 7. The Other Side. It didn't take long to establish that the new town was not Io Falls, but at the same time, it was. Retail wasn't opposite the station, but it had the same chain store design. What I could see of the houses, they were in different places. Looking at the station map, even the river ran a different course. But for all that, it could have been the same place. The same main street, even though many of the shops here were open. The same railway line, going underground in one direction and out over a bridge in the other. Formal paths were laid through the forest. Ornate flower beds decorated the houses. I stopped a passer-by, a sheepish guy in a woolen coat. Who did all this? I'm from a town just like this one, and we don't have any of this stuff. Our mayor! What? They look after our town. Grow flowers, design paths, commission projects. They even issued a decree that the town shops stay open late. You have a mayor? Where are they? Well, I'm not really sure where they are, but they must be around here somewhere. For all my searching, I never found them. I did find a familiar face, though.
So, you're the visitor from Io Falls?
The voice made me spin around. It was Annabelle. the long-nosed villager I'd spoken to after the ceremony. Hi. Are you visiting too?
I'm not sure what you mean. I live here. You're the visitor.
Annabelle, it's me. It's HMK. Her eyes unfocused and refocused, as though she were trying to see me against harsh sunlight.
I'm not sure what you mean. We've never met before.
Of course I've met you. You're a resident of Io Falls.
Well now, I'm pretty sure I've never been there, although it does sound lovely.
This is ridiculous. I spoke to you in Io Falls only yesterday.
I should be going. Lovely speaking with you.
The train pulled back into Io Falls station. I knew it would. As soon as I'd boarded the train at the other end, I knew it would bring me nowhere but here. But where did the rest of the line go? So, the train isn't an option. I'll have to find another way out. Outside the station, Isabel was waiting for me.
I thought you should know a new resident has moved into town today. I'm sure they would appreciate a visit from our very own mayor.
I looked at her. She was watching me carefully, trying to gauge my reaction. I'll try to swing by.
That would be most neighbourly. Be seeing you.
As she walked away, I took off in a different direction. I didn't even need to think about where I was going. I made straight for Annabelle's house and pounded on the door with my fists. She had to be home. The lights were on, and smoke rose in dreamy puffs from the stack. The door cracked open, and I stepped inside. Annabelle's house was just like her. A sofa with the plastic still on, with a giant spotless kitchen unit across the back wall. A tiny wooden TV high on the wall blared out an old Western movie. Annabelle was pacing around, busying herself with this and that. She threw me a smile as though nothing was amiss, but I was sure it was her. Same nose, same face, same outfit.
Hi, and what can I do for our very own mayor today?
You must be tired, getting around so many places in one day.
It has been a busy one,
She said, circling around the green table in the centre and giving an oyster shell music box a light brush with her hand. You seemed much brighter earlier, when I saw you.
Have we spoken today? I'm sure I don't know if I'm coming or going.
Come on. What? Are you going to tell me that you have a sister or a double or something?
What could you possibly mean by that?
I slammed my fist on the table. She gave me a raised eyebrow, but if she was startled, she did nothing to betray it. Are you denying that I saw you today in Echoville and that you and I had a conversation?
Echoville.
You know what? I am getting tired of the circles I am being run in by this town. I just want to know one thing, Belle. Are you prisoner or warden? Are you like me, living here because you don't know how you got here, or are you part of the show? Are you one of the people keeping me here? One of them? Silence filled the room, punctuated only by the gunshots of the movie. Annabelle seemed to be considering her response. Eventually, she said,
I can tell you, sir, that I have never been to Echoville.
Episode 8. The New Resident. The next day I thought about what Isabel had said. There was a new neighbour in town. The question was, were they like me, or was this newcomer part of this town's puppet theatre? I tracked through the forest, realising how badly this place needed paths like the ones I'd seen in Echoville, and found myself at a brand new building. It hadn't been there yesterday, just a dirt patch with a boundary marked around it in driftwood. Nook's people again? 24 hours and bricks and mortar appear just like that? Whoever this person was, they'd got a house straight off. No languishing under canvas for them. I rapped on the door. Inside, the place was full of moving crates. Then, she stepped out from behind a stack. Dark skin, long eyelashes, packed into a drawstring waistcoat with her hair done up in two horns on her head. Hi,
And you are?
she said as she turned, but then she stopped and gasped.
Oh, wow, I've heard about you. You're one of the reasons I moved here.
You've heard of me?
I pretty much had to move here because of what people were saying about your potential.
Potential?
I heard You're going to make Io Falls the place to be.
Where did you hear about me? Where did you come from?
Look, I'm Pashmina. My place is a mess right now, so I'm really not going to be good company.
But I need to talk to you.
Let me get myself sorted and we'll talk again tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to living here, HMK.
The rest of the day went slowly. I explored the forest and the cliff edge. Io Falls wasn't a big place. I experienced a brief pang of panic as I considered the amount of time I could end up spending here, if I didn't find a way out. I found a path down to the beach. The sand was soft, pristine. It was idyllic even, with the water lapping against the shoreline. Something caught my eye. There was a jetty striking out from the sand into the waves. I ran to it and pounded along the wooden boards. There were no boats, but the mooring post looked worn and recently used. This could be it. There was no way out of the village by foot. The sea on two sides and mountains on the other. The train was a circular trap. Unless I could somehow wrest control of the vehicle, they would only take me where someone else wanted me to be. But a boat... that would be my own transport, and no one, not even whoever arranged for me to be brought here, could control the oceans. As I stood and considered this, Isabel came up behind me. This place needs a bar or something.
Oh yes, that's right. I never got around to explaining your job here.
My job?
Well, yes. Mayor is more than just a title.
This job. Who's been doing it since the last mayor left till now? She looked embarrassed. She pawed at the sand and made excuses.
I suppose I have been filling in, but I don't have your unique qualifications.
I looked out to the horizon. No boats in sight. The sun was still high. There was a lot of the day left. Sure. Fill me in. Isabel led me back to the town hall and to a small desk at the back of the office.
I suppose you'd like to know about the development permit, but there are a few prerequisites first.
Why am I not surprised?
Firstly, you'll need your own house. I understand you're still living in a tent? You'll need to make a down payment on a house first.
Why?
It's very important to this town that the mayor making decisions about town construction has first considered his own living arrangements.
I shook my head. For the people, by the people, of the people, huh? You can't have a mayor that doesn't fit in.
I see you understand. That brings me on to the second, little issue. You are required to have an approval rating of 100%.
Let me get this straight. I have to buy a house and get everybody to like me.
Isn't that what everybody wants?
You think that's the ultimate goal in life, do you?
I think it's your goal before I can give you a development permit. Why do you struggle so hard with the idea of liking the people here and getting them to love you in return?
There was a painting at the back of the room. An old leather-skinned gent staring down at the seat of the mayor. What about him? Did everyone love him? Isabel frowned in horror. It was a nice break from her usual look of victorious smugness.
That is Mr. Tortimer, our former mayor. A wonderful man.
Where's he? Why can't he run this place?
Mr. Tortimer has retired from public office, but he still keeps an eye on the running of the town, I assure you.
Where does he live?
He has retired to a private island.
An island? That was a possibility. If there was an island, there would be a boat. Can I see him? Isabel's smile returned.
Certainly you will see him.
She turned and walked back to her own desk.
Once you have your own house.
Chapter 9. Follow the money. I stood in the shade of a tree. With the option of this development permit, my choices had increased. So why did I feel as though the trap was tightening? I could take control of this place, or get a boat to visit the island, and then maybe go anywhere. But the price would be my conformity. I had to get a house, put down roots. Then I would owe Nook. And that was the thing with this place. Once you owed Nook, they had you. So maybe I surprised myself when my feet took me to Tom Nook's door. Nook was inside as usual, grinning broadly as I came inside.
Welcome, welcome!
I assume you have finished moving in by now, yes?
What do I have to do to get a house?
I have, of course, completed running the numbers on your home loan. The down payment is nothing more than a paltry 10,000 bells.
10,000 bells? I don't have that kind of money.
No? That's fine. You're fine. You needn't worry about giving me a single bell at this point in time. I am quite a generous raccoon. That being said, I do need your down payment before any work can be done on your home. That tent was not free.
So what do I do?
You'll find it easy to earn money. Fruit from the trees, seashells from the beach, insects, fish. Gather all these things and take them to my nephew's store a little down the ways. He'll buy them.
Your nephew? Another Nook?
He'll give you a good price. An easy path to riches,
It was the money then. That was the thing that didn't make sense. Rule 1 of investigation: follow the money. That would show who was really in charge here. Looking for a product to start the chain, I walked through the forest and shook a tree laden with fruit. 3 oranges dropped down to the floor. I took them to Main Street and found my way to Nookling Junction. It looked like a pop-up business. Rough timber frame and dirty metal plates held a basic structure. Inside, cobwebs showed that even the spiders hadn't long been evicted from their natural homes. The shopkeeper was a miniature clone of Nook. Same paper-thin jovial expression. He wore a money apron which jangled with bells as he walked.
Welcome, welcome.
Even the same greeting. Tommy introduced himself and asked me my business. I want to sell. You do that here?
Yes, of course. We are cooperating with retail and working as the middleman to provide this service. As such, the price you are paid and what we can accept might differ, so we humbly ask that you understand.
This kid even gave you the same Nook excuses and caveats before ripping you off. I gave Tommy a look at the oranges.
I can offer you 240 bells.
Retail had offered me 300 for the same. That meant the Nook family's cut on this business was 20%. Good to know, but quite a slice of the action. I changed my mind.
Are you positive? If there's anything else I can do...
I'm sure, I said, and pulled the door closed behind me. At retail, Reese the shopkeeper was chatting to a resident of the town. This cat was handing over armfuls of fruit, fish, muddy lumps of what looked like fossilized bone, and armfuls of clothing. Reese handed over a sack of bells in exchange. The items the cat had brought in, Reese imperceptibly stored away.
Can I help you?
Reese asked as she approached. I came in to sell some things, but can I just ask, what do you do with all the things you buy from residents?
We recycle.
Yeah, I understand that, but how do you recycle? You're handing over a lot of money, bells, but where do the goods go? You aren't selling them here. Your shelves just contain a few second-hand items of furniture, so who gets all the fruit and bugs? Reese looked confused, uncertain.
They are taken away for recycling. I'm not sure I can explain it any better than that.
Listen, where do the bells come from that you pay for our items?
We have an account.
And who pays into that account?
I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable discussing my private finances in this way. I assure you I am not doing anything illegal.
She trotted away to the back of the shop and began to fuss around the guy in the corner, still fast asleep. I stumbled back to my tent with a mind more full of questions than answers. Once again I noticed a letter sticking out of my makeshift mailbox. I pulled the letter out and read it. Dear HMK, I can't help but be a bit nervous about your first solo journey. I'm sending you something to help you along. I'll try not to worry. Mum. More questions, none of them good. Somewhere outside this town was the real world, and in it, my mum, my real mum, had been missing for 15 years. Chapter 10. The Boat. It all whirled around my head. The letter from my missing mother, and the letter from the stranger who claimed they were the original mayor of Io Falls. Annabelle, present in 2 towns but pretending not to know me in either. The beautiful newcomer, Pashmina, who had yet to emerge from her house, and Tortimer, the former mayor of this town, perhaps all the towns, who had since retired to a private island. Most of these things were out of my control, but one of them wasn't. I decided there and then that whatever the risk, I would get that permit, get the invitation to the island, and confront Tortimer. As Nook had suggested, getting 10,000 bells together wasn't hard. I grabbed every orange I could find in the forest. I even found the husk of the beehive I'd disturbed on my first night's foraging, still on the ground where it had fallen. I looked around, arms full of oranges, to see Pashmina staring at me with a quizzical expression.
What are you doing?
I'm just, I stammered, dropping oranges all over the floor. I just need money for a house deposit.
And you're going to pay for that with oranges?
Whatever falls to the ground, right?
That will take you ages. Let me show you a better way.
Carrying a fishing rod, she took me by the hand and led me to the river. She held my arms and showed me how to cast into the water.
Watch out for shadows under the water. That's where they're hiding. Drop the line in just in front of the shape and wait.
I cast my line into the lazy stream. The bob floated past and began to drift around the corner. Pashmina stood, watching. I felt a tug on the line. I pulled, and a small green fish sailed out of the water and landed in my arms. Full of pride, I looked around to show Pashmina, but she had already disappeared. Her tip was right, though, and in no time at all, my haul had earned me a little over 10,000 bells at retail. Reese smiled and said that she was pleased I was fitting in to village life. Other villagers I passed also smiled and waved. Did they know I still wanted to leave? Annabelle was nowhere to be seen. With no time to waste, I took the sack of bells to Nook's store and dropped it on the floor in front of him. He eyed me eagerly. That does make me very happy. The money makes everything official. Official. For the moment, you must be looking forward to tomorrow, yes? You just go to sleep, and we will do the rest. For better or worse, I'd done it. I'd bought a house in Animal Crossing. I slept, dreaming of trains and trees, islands and boats, and Tom Nook laughing. All the while laughing. When I awoke, the air felt different. I was in a strange room. Dust danced in the light shining through the windows onto bare floorboards. The walls were plaster and brick. But I was still lying on my bed, my own lantern in the corner, my hat on the floor. I stepped outside. To my amazement, the house stood in exactly the spot where I had gone to sleep in my tent. Was it possible? Had Nook's people come and built the house around me while I slept? On the night my tent had been constructed, that had been instant as well, hadn't it? How was Nook doing this? I went back inside. It was basic, but warmer than the tent. Within moments there came a knock at the door. Isabel. I should have known.
I see your house is all finished.
Yeah.
Housewarming gift,
She announced and pulled out a roll of wallpaper.
I'm so pleased to see you in a house at last. I hope you enjoy it.
I looked at the pattern. Handprints. They looked like Isabel's own.
I'll leave you on your own now.
Wait. We had a deal. You said if I had my house, I could see Tortimer. How do I get to him?
Well, yes, you do have a house, but you don't own it, do you?
What do you mean?
Well, you paid off your tent, and Mr. Nook very kindly built this home for you, and now you need to pay this off as well. Then you can see Tortimer.
Bells chimed in the distance, the song of the town. I looked at Isabel's gleeful face as she walked out of my house. That was it. The trap was complete. I had my house, and they had me. I had no idea what they would charge me this time, but I knew I was going nowhere until it was done. No boat, No island. Nothing. A card slipped under the door. A card I had seen before when all of this began. A picture postcard of happy faces and busy villagers. Welcome to Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing Noir will return soon.